Africa to the world, I am Yavi Madure, and this is the AfCFTA Plug. The AfCFTA was created as an objective of Africa's blueprint, which is called Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 essentially says, through its various aspirations, that by the year 2063, we, as the continent of Africa, need to be self-sustainable. No more aid. So now, with the AfCFTA almost here, because until it operationalizes, it is not exactly open for us to use. So with it being almost here, we need to ensure its success. We need to optimize the benefits. We need to understand how it works so that we can be accountable, responsible, but also we can take ownership of it. We never need permission to take ownership of something that is meant for us, for the Africans of this continent. Wamkele Mene, the AfCFTA Secretary General, always says the AfCFTA was not created for specific people. It was created for Africa's 1.3 billion people. That is you and I. We do not need permission to take advantage of something that was meant for us to benefit from. Big business, make no mistake, will ensure that it benefits from it. It does not need permission. Small businesses, medium enterprises, mom and pop stores, the dressmakers, the freelancers, the consultants, all of the people that create a product or a service that would be part of the value chain of intra-Africa trade now has an opportunity to be able to engage in cross-border trade with their products and services and benefit from the effects of the AfCFTA. This week, we start with the basics. And the basics is how to remember to say it, not how to say it. How to remember to say it. And way back in 2017, when I first came upon it, so to speak, and I would forget the order of the letters, or I would forget some of the letters, and I would end up calling it the CFTA, or I would call it the CTA. And until we call it by its right name, it means that we have not taken ownership of it. So let's learn how to say our name, our AfCFTA. So just remember that there's a lot of F's. And if you remember that there's always a letter before one of the F's, and because we always end with gratitude, there's a ta at the end. So AF, CF, TA, because we always end with gratitude. Now, let's talk free trade area. In this case, African, us, the continent, continental, our entire continent, free trade area, which is the objective. A free trade area is generally when a group of countries in a collective, and in our case, it is the collective of the continent, that has either very few or no barriers to trade, especially when it comes to the tariffs and quotas between each other. Because of the principle of critical mass, or many coming together, free trade areas tend to increase the volume of international trade amongst the member countries and allows them to increase their specialization in their respective categories and comparative advantages, so that one country would become specialists in our case on the continent, one country could be specialist in maize, one country could be specialist in peanuts, or a few countries could be specialist in peanuts, oil, water, and then we look at the manufactured goods that are taken and created from this raw material. We could also look at raw materials moving between countries and certain countries becoming specialists in finishing parts or contributing parts of the value chain so that it gets shipped out of one country but goes through 3 or 4 countries in order for it to become what it becomes in the end and exits the African continent to international markets. Intracontinental trade, or in this case intra-Africa trade, becomes heightened. Why? Because of trust. And trust becomes, or is, our biggest challenge on the African continent. We trust European, we trust American, we trust fill in the blanks. We don't trust each other. Now, historically, if we look at the continent, it was divided by intention because of our colonial histories. Across the continent, that colonization has served to divide us and not unite us, but intentionally so. So now it is easier for us, for me, for example, in South Africa that was colonized by the British, it is easier for me to fly to the UK than it is, and cheaper than it is for me to fly to Ghana, because Ghana wasn't South Africa's colonizer, as an example. So the AfCFTA serves as a uniter. The AfCFTA serves that if we break down the borders in terms of trade, we then have to find a way to create infrastructure that makes it easier for us to be able to travel and trade goods with each other. So the AfCFTA serves as a uniter in terms of ensuring economic development on the continent. While it may seem that this sometimes comes across as idealistic, I have this to say to you. Other countries, other continents sit with 60 to 60% plus of intracontinental trade. Africa sits at 18%, 1/8. So we have no reason to apologize. We have no reason to say to ourselves, this is never going to work. We have every reason to say to us that this has to work. And it is up to each and every one of us from a continental perspective to say it will work. And we will drive 18 to 30% intra-Africa trade by the year 2030.